Now that my sister sells chicken breasts from her farm, I get them all the time because they're just so convenient. A lot of times I will cut them up and bread them with some whole grain sourdough breadcrumbs and fry them in lard or tallow. I also do a lot of stovetop searing in butter in a cast iron skillet and then make like a cream sauce with pasta. But today I'm doing a baked chicken, which I don't do all the time. I'll be using Parmesan cheese, some herbs and spices, some lemon, and serving it with mashed potatoes. My family loved it so much. I had many requests to make this again and again. Last time I was at the store, I accidentally bought elephant ear garlic instead of normal garlic, and I kind of think it's a hack because it is so much easier. You take one massive piece of garlic, you peel it, and then you're good to go instead of dealing with all these little tiny pieces and the peels. I can't really tell the difference in taste, so I think I'm always going to buy that kind now. I wanted to serve these mashed potatoes fast, so I cut them small. I did not peel them, making for a quick version. I'll add some butter and cream and maybe a little bit of milk and salt. Give it a quick spin in the mixer and it'll be the perfect pairing with this baked Parmesan garlic paprika chicken. I need to remember to put chicken in the oven with lots of fat and seasonings more often because it's very simple, it's very quick, and obviously delicious. Now, chicken can get dry if you bake it too much and you don't add enough fat and salt, but we're looking for just done and not beyond. One way that I fill our kitchen and pantry with quality ingredients to cook from scratch for our family is by using Thrive Market. Now, Thrive Market is a subscription-based online grocery store that specializes in natural and organic ingredients. This time I happened to see that they had sourdough pasta. Now, I love making this in our own home, but there are plenty of times where I find myself in a pinch. I have meat thawed out in the fridge and I just need a few things to bring the meal together. Some quality boxed pasta, some veggies from the fridge, some meat, maybe a canned sauce from Thrive Market, and the whole thing just comes together. I love that on the Thrive Market website, you can sort by dietary preference. So if you are paleo, dairy-free, gluten-free, you can see only those options, making for a very streamlined shopping experience. Plus, orders over $49 ship free, comes right to your door, making it super convenient so you can spend less time in the kitchen and have all the things that you need. I also like to pick up snacks from Thrive Market. We don't use them a ton, but I keep them up there for times when my sister and I want to meet at the park. It's a warm day in February and we have to get out of the house right now and I have no time to prepare. I'll throw some avocado oil fried chips and quality bars and snacks along with some sandwiches into a bag and we're off. We also do homeschool co-op and I just can't find at my local store quality snacks. I can order them in, but I cannot find them just at the local grocery store. This way I can get them and they're also very competitively priced. Now, if I drove, way far into town and went to a more expensive health food store, I can find them, not very conveniently, and they're very expensive. So I love that Thrive Market fills this need for me. Thrive Market is offering Farmhouse on Boom viewers 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by using my link thrivemarket.com/Farmhouse on Boom. I will also leave it linked in the description box below. Again, thank you so much Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. I had some ground beef thawed out in the refrigerator as well as some sausage. If you know me, you know at the beginning of the week I like to bring in a whole bunch of meat from our big stockpile that we have out in our stand-up or upright freezer out in the garage. I keep it very stocked and then my goal is to always have enough meat thawed out so a meal is always close by. Also keeping the pantry and the fridge stocked with staples means you can throw together something like a lasagna. That was my plan today. I was like, you know what, let's make a lasagna since I have ground beef and sausage and we tend to kind of make the same things over and over. And one thing that we haven't done a whole lot of is lasagna. And I thought I will make my daughter, she loves to cook in the kitchen, do some whole grain lasagna noodles. But as the mealtime was approaching, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to make that big of a mess right now. And Thrive Market started selling this sourdough pasta that has very quality ingredients, a very short list, durum wheat. And so I thought, you know what, let's do lasagna, but let's do it with more of like a pasta bake. So one of the layers will just be that pasta instead of lasagna noodles. And my daughter said, you really can't call this lasagna. She was kind of opposed to that. So I guess we'll call it a pasta bake. Now I am team putting sugar, something sweet, in any kind of tomato product. So I put some brown sugar in this meat. I have ground sausage, ground beef. I'll add some crushed tomatoes as well as tomato paste. Then I'm going to mix up ricotta cheese with some freshly grated Parmesan and a couple eggs. Do layers of that and the sauce and the noodles and mozzarella cheese. This one goes a long way because it has so many protein-rich ingredients in here that most likely, if you play your cards right, your family can eat this a few meals in the week. This one works best if you can make it about 30 minutes ahead of mealtime so it has time to set up and everything's not gooey and falling apart. But man, my family loved it and nobody cared that it didn't have real lasagna noodles. I start this soup by searing my chicken to give it some color and flavor with the butter and some salt, and then adding in all of the chopped and diced veggies into what the chicken left there, as well as the butter. I add in a bit more butter and some garlic, giving everything all of this nice flavor together. Of course, you can print this recipe over on farmhouseonboone.com. Just search chicken corn chowder. It is a family favorite for us. Everyone loves it. I should have definitely made double or triple so that we could have had it for multiple meals. I add some flour to the butter and vegetables to thicken it up. Once the broth hits it and it simmers with that flour, it will make it a bit thicker, which we always enjoy with a soup. I love that with soups, the process is always pretty much the same. I talked about this in my video, how to have healthy meals without meal planning or something like that. I don't know, sometime in the last year, I made a video that said, don't meal plan, try this instead. And I talked about how soups are something that if you figure out just like the basics of how they come together, you can adapt it for any soup flavor and make it to where you're not always eating the exact same thing all the time, but you're also not overthinking it and having to constantly come up with recipes and meal plans. I feel like once I figured that out in my kitchen, it made my life a lot easier. This tastes great with some homemade cornbread. I'm doing sourdough cornbread from my website. Again, you can print the recipe off. There is a long fermentation version, but you can also make it quick if you don't have time for fermenting, which of course adds tons of health benefits. But today I just simply didn't have the time. I did not think ahead to make a sourdough bread or a sourdough cornbread yesterday. I just today threw it together to serve alongside this soup. So I'm adding the dry ingredients together and then adding in the wet ingredients. It'll bake up quick because it's a smaller batch and it'll be just enough to serve with this soup, and likely we won't have any leftovers, which sometimes it's really great to have large quantities of leftovers, and sometimes you're like, great, I'm not putting anything away after this meal, and that would be the case for what I'm making today.
I see eggs. Now why am I...
Do you want to make bread with Mama? Now, in my opinion, every soup is a little better when you add some heavy cream to it. So I did that here, served it alongside our cornbread, the perfect meal for a cold winter day. We had a special request from the 7-year-old in our family for bread bowls. He remembered back when I made them last, which was a while ago. I'm not really sure why, because they're really not that hard. Now I am doing half whole grain, half all-purpose. It's been a while since I've done all-purpose in my kitchen, but I really wanted these to have a lot of oven spring and be fluffy like mini bowls. And I will say that with whole grain bread, I tend to do a lot better when I'm adding butter and honey and making it a soft, fluffy, like dinner roll or sandwich bread. The bowls, yes, it can be done. They're fine, but they're not as good as when you just add a little bit of all-purpose. They tend to have the same structure, or at least around half. They have the same shape and fluffiness and crusty outside like a normal sourdough bowl, and that is really what I wanted to go for here. So occasionally I'm just going to bust out the all-purpose flour for something like this. I'll do stretch and folds throughout the afternoon until it feels like the gluten is nicely developed, stretchy, and can pass the window pane test. And during these cold winter days, I can get away with letting it sit for a good long while before becoming over fermented. So I let this sit all the way until about 10 or 11 the next day. So this dough had a chance to do its bulk ferment for around 20 hours. Perfectly fine when it's this time of year in the summer. Sometimes if we keep the kitchen really warm, which we're not ones to turn the air conditioning down to 70. Dough can over ferment in as little as 6 hours. That's why sourdough is so tricky to give people exacts, because there are no exacts. You have to just kind of work with the environment in your kitchen. It changes throughout the year, and you can tell when it has gone too far. Now, I'm completely skipping the refrigerator rise for this. So like I said, I got this dough going yesterday afternoon. I let it sit at room temperature, and then today, around 20 hours later, I am dividing it into 8 equal parts, shaping each one just like you would a sourdough bowl. The shaping part of sourdough is actually important. It doesn't look much different than just dividing it and making it into little balls, but when you shape it properly and give it some tension against the countertop, it gives the final result better structure, gives it that oven spring, so it'll fluff up so much in the oven. It will be a lot bigger than when it first went in, and that is what we are going for. I have the printable version of the bread bowls recipe on farmhouseonboone.com. Now on that one, I did show doing the fridge rise. So basically you would get this going another day in advance or so that it could go overnight in the fridge, but it's totally not necessary. And to me, honestly, it's an extra step, but sometimes it's really nice to get things going ahead of time to prep for a meal maybe a few days from now. Or if you like to do a bulk prep day, it can be nice to utilize that fridge rise. But by not doing it, I'm skipping putting it into any individual bowls for shaping and making it a much more straightforward process with almost just as good of results. And of course, also on this one here, I'm doing half whole grain, whereas on the recipe on the blog, there's whole grain, but it's not quite that high of a percentage, trying to give people the best results when they first start out with sourdough. And it is a lot easier to bake with bread flour and all-purpose flour. That whole combination can be a little bit more forgiving when you first get started. I am just throwing together a basic classic potato soup to go inside of these bread bowls. So I'm sauteing some onions and garlic and potatoes in some fat to give them some nice flavor. Once those develop a little bit of color and tenderness, I add some flour. This will help the soup to thicken up a bit. I add broth, let it simmer for a while. I'll finish it off with some cream or milk, lots of salt and pepper to taste. Sometimes I'll throw a little immersion blender in there as well, but today I'm just leaving the potatoes whole and giving it time to simmer so that they do break down a bit and make for a creamy, delicious soup to fill these bread bowls. For the bread bowls, the big key, since we're not baking in like 8 different little Dutch ovens that provide all that steam, I'm adding steam to the oven by putting in a cast iron skillet that I add boiling water to a few times throughout the baking process. This provides enough steam in the oven to still give it that oven spring like you would if you were baking inside of a Dutch oven. So that's why you bake sourdough inside of a Dutch oven. You're trying to get it to spring up, and by preheating a Dutch oven and putting the lid on, the bread creates steam and it's the perfect environment. If you're not doing that, you have to add some kind of steam to the oven. This is also the way that you can bake a sourdough bowl without a Dutch oven. You just have to create some steam inside your oven, and having a cast iron skillet or 2 in there that's already preheated, so it has all of that heat and it's constantly releasing the water and boiling water inside of it. It makes the whole oven a big steam oven. I am going to bake these potatoes, get them going pretty early here in the morning so they can be cooked and cooled for me to make gnocchi later today. Now, some of you might be wondering what I do with the insides of the bread bowls, like when you pull out all the bread from the inside, and then also what if someone doesn't finish their bread? Because for a really small one, they can eat a lot of it, but they're not probably going to eat 1/8 of this recipe at one time. I take all of that and cut it up, put it on a baking sheet, toast it in the oven until it is crispy, and then blend it up into breadcrumbs. Now I know some of you will be very grossed out by the fact that I threw some that had a little bit of soup still on it, but I'm telling you, it just adds a little bit more flavor when you go to use those breadcrumbs. And I plan to use this within the next couple days to make fried chicken. This is a recipe over on the blog, creamy gnocchi sauce, which obviously tastes great over gnocchi, whether it's store-bought or homemade, but it's also a great sauce to throw over pasta. So if you're just looking for an easy, creamy sauce that you can throw together really quickly, this could be a great one for you. I start by sauteing onions and garlic. I add some cream and cream cheese or mascarpone. Gruyere cheese is great for melting, but you can also use cheddar. I'll also add in some freshly grated Parmesan. Now I'm going to make the gnocchi, which is also over on the blog, the sauce, and I'm also going to brown up some sausage. I'll add in some spinach. So it'll be a creamy, sausagey sort of pasta with spinach. Well, our kitchen is shutting down for the week because our family is going on a little vacation. It's a short one, but the kids are very excited. I've been wanting to tell you all about my in-laws' new short-term rental property. They worked so hard completely renovating and restoring a historic property down in Branson. So if you're in the Midwest area and you've ever gone to Silver Dollar City or you've wanted to go to Silver Dollar City, it's a great location for that. I'm going to put a few little clips here after our gnocchi dinner. We're trying to get the word out because it's a brand new listing. So they gave me a coupon code. I'll put that down in the description box and the link. I think they did just such a great job. My mother-in-law picked a whole vibe for this place and she ran with it. Everything you see, she's done. The paint colors, the furniture, it was a lot of work, but I think it turned out absolutely adorable. So if you have ever thought about going to Branson, I really think that you should check it out. I have plans very soon to share with you the update on our build project. We've actually broken ground, so I'm so excited to start sharing with you the design and the progress. All of that is coming very soon.